Welcome to The Middle, the news from both sides, no spin. 3 stories today. Here's what happened, here's what the left says, what the right says, and here's what the facts actually show. Let's get into it. The Hormuz blockade. The United States Navy is blockading the Strait of Hormuz starting this morning. That's a choke point for roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply. And one wrong move could turn an already dangerous war into a global economic crisis. Here's a timeline. For the past 6 weeks, the US and Israel have been at war with Iran. Iran responded by restricting access to the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway of Iran's southern coast that most of the world's oil passes through. This weekend, Vice President Vance led a US delegation to Islamabad for 21 hours of face-to-face peace talks with Iran. The talks collapsed Sunday over one issue: Iran's nuclear program. Trump announced the blockade on Truth Social within hours. CENTCOM says it starts this morning. The left's take? Well, the left says this is an escalation with no exit strategy. 40 plus days into the war, and the original goals, ending Iran's nuclear program, regime change, reopening the strait, are mostly unmet. Democrats on the Senate Intelligence Committee say they don't understand how blockading the strait forces Iran to open it. You don't blockade your way to a peace deal. You just create more pressure with no obvious exit. The right's take? Well, the right says Iran turned the strait into a toll road, charging ships up to $2 million to pass through international waters. Trump called it world extortion. The blockade flips the dynamic. It denies Iran the revenue it's been using as its main bargaining chip. If Iran won't open the strait, the US will open it for them. And Iran already knows what US military power looks like up close. The facts? The Strait of Hormuz carries roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas. Since Iran began restricting access 6 weeks ago, oil has exceeded $100 a barrel at times. A Columbia University energy expert warned that prices won't decline until the strait reopens and damaged Iranian oil facilities are repaired, calling both variables huge and really unsolved, potentially through the end of 2026. And here's the thing neither side is talking about. China and India have been quietly transiting the strait under deals with Iran, paying the toll. Trump's blockade order says U.S. forces will interdict any vessel that has paid that toll. That doesn't just pressure Iran. It puts U.S. warships directly in the path of Chinese and Indian ships. That's not only a Middle East story. That's a potential confrontation with two of the world's largest economies. The bottom line, the blockade removes Iran's leverage. The question no one's answered yet: what does the U.S. do when a Chinese vessel doesn't stop? Story 2, Polymarket and the bets that knew too much. There's a platform called Polymarket where people bet real money on future events. Whether the Fed cuts rates, whether a war starts. Last week, Congress started asking questions because some people on Polymarket seem to know things before they happen. In the minutes before Trump announced a US-Iran ceasefire last week, at least 50 brand new accounts placed big bets on what's happening. Those were the only bets those accounts ever made. They collected their winnings and then went silent. The left's take? The left says this is insider trading with national security implications. Someone with access to the White House, to classified briefings, or to the president himself is converting that access into anonymous offshore profit. One Democratic senator called Polymarket an illicit market to sell and exploit national security secrets. When someone bets on a war starting 12 minutes before a presidential announcement, that's not good analysis. That's a leak. The right's take? The right says prediction markets are legitimate, often more accurate than media forecasts or government assessments. Sophisticated traders read signals. They follow diplomatic body language. Accurate prediction isn't a crime, and heavy-handed regulation kills one of the few tools that actually gets geopolitical outcomes right. The answer to suspicious trades is to investigate specific actors where there's evidence, not to shut down the entire market because some trades look lucky. The facts: at least 50 brand new Polymarket accounts bet on the US-Iran ceasefire in the minutes before Trump's announcement and made no other trades. Harvard researchers published a paper last month estimating $143 million in Polymarket profits may have come from users with insider information across events including the Nobel Peace Prize. Earlier suspicious trades include a $400,000 profit on Nicolas Maduro's capture hours before it happened, and a $550,000 bet on the Iran war starting before that was announced. Polymarket is banned from the U.S. users but operates an offshore crypto-based platform outside U.S. jurisdiction. Congress is drafting bills the CFTC has been asked to investigate. And here's the thing neither side is talking about. Every investigation is aimed at the platform, but Polymarket isn't the leak. The real question is who inside the U.S. government, or close enough to the president to know his Truth Social post 12 minutes early, is converting classified information into cash. That's not financial regulation problem. That's a counterintelligence problem. Bottom line, somebody knows something. The question is whether Washington investigates the bets or investigates the leak. Story 3, Medicaid's paper trap. Medicaid covers roughly 80 million Americans, low-income adults, children, people with disabilities. Congress is moving to add work requirements for a portion of those enrollees. Able-bodied adults without dependents would need to prove they're working, in school, or doing community service to keep their coverage. Some states could be required to implement this within months. The left's take? The left says work requirements don't reduce non-work. They reduce coverage through paperwork. The one state that tested this, Arkansas, in 2018, saw 18,000 people lose coverage within months. Nearly all of them were already working or qualified for exemptions, but lost coverage through administrative failures, not because they weren't meeting the requirements. This isn't about encouraging work. It's about cutting the rolls through bureaucratic attrition. The right's take? The right says Medicaid was built as a safety net, a temporary support for people in transition, not an indefinite entitlement for able-bodied adults who choose not to work. Taxpayers fund this program. Asking recipients to contribute something in return, work, education, community service, is a reasonable condition. A safety net catches you when you fall. It doesn't let you set up camp on the ground permanently. The facts? Medicaid currently covers roughly 80 million Americans. Estimates suggest about 60% of enrollees who would be subject to work requirements are already working. Of those who aren't, most are dealing with caregiving responsibilities, short-term illness, or temporary unemployment, circumstances that qualify for exemptions on paper but require paperwork to prove. Arkansas implemented work requirements in 2018. A federal court struck the policy down in 2019 after 18,000 people lost coverage. Multiple studies found most had been working or were exempt. CBS News reported this week that many states already lacked the staff and systems to process current Medicaid applications fast enough before adding an additional verification layer on top. And here's the thing neither side is talking about. The administrative cost of building and running a work verification system, the staff, the software, the appeals processes, may exceed the savings from the coverage reductions. The Congressional Budget Office has found similar proposals produce modest coverage cuts while generating substantial new administrative costs. So you could end up spending more money checking whether people deserve health care than you save by taking it away. The bottom line, the debate is framed as work versus welfare. The data suggests it really is a question of whether the paperwork system should determine who gets health care. That's the middle for today. 3 stories, both sides, no agenda. If this is useful to you, share it with someone who's tired of being told what to think. See you next time.